Hey, everybody, this is Chuck with the Revenue Fuel Podcast. Today, I have an amazing guest. This guy cracked me up. I loved him. I learned so much at a Microsoft Dynamics conference back in October. It was amazing. His name is Jeff Havens, and Jeff's got a great story that I want to bring to you because honestly, this is all about dreamers, innovators, rebels, and trailblazers. And I really want to learn from people who do things differently. And hopefully you can find a way to do things differently in your life, in your business, so you can take it out there and you can kill it the way Jeff is killing it. Jeff, welcome to this podcast.
Thank you very much, Chuck. I'm excited to be here. Thank you for being dumb enough to host me.
Well, I'm the other way around. Are you really excited? Come on. I mean, look at me. I mean, hey, whatever.
You
But
got a great voice for radio.
yeah, right. I got a great face for radio. But thank you. So, Jeff, this is crazy. You know, we were talking in prep. You told us your story. And how does a chicken drummer build a seven-figure business?
Not by playing the drums dressed like a chicken. That's just where I started. I haven't finished there. So in case anybody saw the title and they thought, all I got to do is go get a chicken suit and a drum, and I have a dream. You can build like a 4 or 5 figure business that way. I'm pretty 5 figure. You can build easily 5 figure business playing the drums dressed like a chicken. To do 6 or 7 figure, you're going to probably have to do some transitioning, which is what I did. But it's where things got started.
Well,
So
yeah, look, that's better than I would have expected. I would expect you to be 100 air, but you're saying you could be 1,000 air being a chicken drummer.
absolutely. Oh man, yeah, no, I totally right. You make way more money dressed like a chicken than you do dressed like a person. I did it both ways. We have some pictures we'll show you later. And yes,
Oh,
highly
great.
recommend the animal costume for any prospective buskers who are listening right now.
Yeah, well, chicken's already taken. I'm going to have to go get a different costume for my next business teams meeting. You know, look out for it, folks, because apparently it's coming, right? So, chicken drummer.
Yes,
All right.
and
You
you're
actually,
probably
wait,
thinking,
you're not just
oh,
messing
sorry,
with
go
me.
ahead.
You're not just messing with me. You actually played drums dressed like a chicken.
Yeah, I did play the drums dressed like a chicken. I played the drums dressed like a person first. And then for some reason, I had the idea, maybe I should wear it. You know, it got to differentiate somehow. I was in Nashville, Tennessee, right? So street performance, not all that uncommon.
Yeah, yeah.
Tons of people going down on Broadway, going down on Second Avenue. This is back in the 90s, early 2000s. And, playing the guitar or whatever. And I wanted to differentiate. So there's a whole bunch of people there. I thought, well, what can I do? I could probably be an animal playing the drums. So at the time, eBay was selling 2 animal costumes. This is how old I am.
Mm-hmm.
They had a chicken outfit and a cow outfit. And I picked chicken, which I'm glad I did. I think it was the right decision. And so I bought a chicken costume for $100 on eBay. The first online purchase of my life, by the way. And then went downtown, started playing dressed like a chicken. And the second night I was down there, a bar owner said, I will pay you to stand here and slow traffic down so that people will come into my bar. And I was like, all right, I was going to do it free down the street. I'll do it for money here. So they paid me. I got tips. I got a lot of pictures. Eventually, like I had to win a date with the Chicken Man competition, which my wife at the time helped me organize. That was interesting. So yeah, it worked out.
Well, I'm thinking that you really probably deserve a royalty on the Chick-fil-A billboards because there's just millions of cows around the world that are thankful that you chose chicken instead of instead
That
of beef.
is true. That is true. I don't know how I get a royalty for something I didn't select, but I like your thinking.
I dream
Maybe I
big.
can
Yeah.
sue them for having taken something I thought I maybe would have done one day.
There
That's
it
a
is.
great idea.
Is it though? I don't know how great an idea it is. Apparently, I watch too much TV or read too many billboards. I don't know. Whatever.
Or eat too much Chick-fil-A. Could be that.
Yes. Oh God, it's so good. I'm more of a burger guy. Poor cows. Whatever. So, all right. Well, how could that possibly launch a successful business? I mean, come
That
on.
is a very fair question. And so people are like, I don't know how this guy does anything. And like I said, I don't do that now, but it helped me get started on the path that I'm on now. And all I'd like to say at the moment, as we get into the story, is it's okay to be lost because this happened at a time in my life when I was making a transition from one very stable career to what ended up being another very stable but unplanned career. And I know there's a lot of people who aren't sure where they are right now or where they're going, or who have kids who
Mhm.
are uncertain what major to pick in college, or, they're in their mid 20s and haven't figured it out yet. And all I want to say is that's okay. That sometimes is really a good place to be.
Yeah, I've had the privilege of awarding kids scholarships in high school, and
Oh,
one of
that's
the things that
cool.
struck me, well, don't get me wrong, it's just hey, it's like hey, you free Tuesday night, and we're sending you, right?
Still,
So, but one of the things that struck me is so much different than when I went to college uh, is investigative studies. Right. This is a thing where you go to college, you have no idea what you're going to do, and you're going to go out and you're going to survey a bunch of different stuff and see if you can figure it out. My son is a
yeah,
computer science major, and he's going to my alma mater, and they have a class there that they're required to take that we certainly didn't have to take. You go into the engineering college, and they want to give you a survey of like 5 different kinds of engineering.
that's phenomenal.
I know, right? It's a
That's
whole new
how it
thing.
It's how it should be. I went to college to be a high school English teacher. I never changed my major. I decided senior year of high school, that's what I was going to do. My mother had been a teacher. My father had been a teacher. My grandmother had been a teacher. So, it was in the family. It wasn't a hard decision to make, really.
Yep.
And I knew I was going to do it for forever.
Hmm.
So, those are the classes that I picked. And senior year of college, I did take one electrical engineering class just because I wanted something totally outside of my own normal experience. And I remember it was this freshman level class, but I was a senior. And the professor, like day one, he's asked, there's like 130 people in there or whatever. And he's like, who here is not a freshman? 3 people raised their hands. The other 2 had scheduling conflicts and were sophomores, but they were just sorry, I should have done this last year. And he's like, what about you? I'm like, I'm a senior. I'm an English major. I just wanted to do something different. And everyone else is like, the hell are you doing here? Why are you in this class? But I chose to do that. The fact that colleges are now encouraging it of people, I mean, that's what education is for. That's why we put kids through classes that they have already decided they don't want to do, right?
Hmm.
Because you never know where life is going to take you. And maybe algebra is going to be really important to you later in your life. You just don't know. And having an opportunity to figure it out is critical. And that's what I did with my career ultimately. And it's what people should be doing with their lives all the way through.
So, well, yeah. I mean, and I hope. I mean, I have the opportunity now to go back to that alma mater and influence kids, influence young students, and even we're trying to outreach to high school students. So, what you're saying resonates with me in a huge way. I mean, and of course, I'm a father, so all you people out there that are parents and trust me. It may seem unconventional, chicken drummer to 7-figure business, but there is a path. I mean, you just have to,
Yeah.
help
And
guide them and help them.
I'm excited for myself because my wife got her PhD in organic chemistry and she stayed on the path, right? She picked the
Yep.
thing, she studied chemistry, she went to grad school, she studied chemistry, she got her PhD, she got a job as a chemist. And so she's successful and has, straight line path, right?
Hmm.
Until we had kids. And then she decided to stay home. And now we don't really know what'll happen for her on the other side of that.
Hmm.
But myself, I can't even count how many jobs I've had until I ended up where I am now. And
Hmm.
20, 30, 40, something like that. And I have had a spider web type of a path. And my kids are going to grow up seeing their mom pick a direction and stick with it and
Hmm.
work out. And
Hmm.
they're going to see me pick lots of different, who knows what's going to happen. And it worked out.
Yep.
And I'm very excited that they're going to see that there's more than one right way forward.
Yeah, and that's honestly, like you said, that's the way it should be, right? It's all you set the roles for them, and ultimately they got to find their own way, right? I was talking to a guy the other
Yeah.
day, and he said his wife is very sad. He goes, "Oh, she's watching the kids grow up," and he's like, "What are you talking about?" He goes, "That was the goal all along. What do you want them to stay and be babies the whole time? The whole goal was to get them to grow up.
They,
We don't want to get
they
rid of
are
them, but that's the
actually
point."
supposed to leave. It's their
Yeah.
job.
We don't want you to leave, but we don't want you to stay either.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's the Semisonic song, right?
Yeah.
You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here.
Yeah, right. I mean, how many times have I said that leaving a bar? I just don't even know. So, all right. So you had a perfectly good job.
Yep,
You became a high school teacher.
yep.
And tell me about that. I mean, what the heck?
Well, I mean, honestly, if things had worked out differently, I'm sure I'd still be doing it. I wanted to be a high school teacher. Like I said, I never changed my major. And I got a job at an inner city school in Nashville, Tennessee, teaching ninth and 10th grade English, with every intention, like many other young 20s, idealistic people of coming in and making a big impact and Dangerous Minds, Dead Poet Society, pick
Right.
your uplifting educational movie. I'm going to be that person, right? And I got into the reality of what it's like at an inner city school, and it knocked me down.
Yeah.
No parent involvement, huge turnover in the student
Mhm.
population, few resources. We had a supportive administration, which was great, but I
Mhm.
mean, it is just an uphill slog all the time. And at 22 years old, to be honest, I did not have the skill. I did not have the knowledge necessary to figure out how to weather all that. And I ultimately decided after 2 years that I was in the wrong environment. And that's not necessarily me leaving teaching. Maybe it's just me at the wrong place.
Mhm.
I had a friend who taught at a super rich private school, was very happy there. I had another friend who taught at the school that you go to right before you go to prison, and she was very happy there. And so, you got to find your environment, which I think is important. And that's probably true in a lot of other industries as well. Find the right department, the right boss, the right project, and that's really what speaks to you. So I left that school, and as a typically cocky, idiotic 24-year-old, I'm like, oh, I'll find a job. Of course I will. I'm a teacher. There's always teaching jobs. So 3 months later, there's no jobs that have popped up. I've already left the other one, and I had set my salary to pay through the summer. So I got paid for 3 months, for the summer, and then August comes around, and I'm like, okay, there's no teaching job, so
So what'd you
I
do?
need to get paid. So let's go to work, and that began a 5-year odyssey of taking every job that I could find, which so I'm trying to think, let's see if I can knock all these out. So I was a freelance writer. I did writing for Nashville music publications, did interview of people, did interviews of musicians and other people around Nashville. I was a wedding DJ. I did that for a while. I worked at the Sylvan Learning Center doing tutoring. I did private tutoring in math and English and Latin because I had taken 2 years of that in high school, which made me as much of an expert as everybody else. I did the street performance busking, which of these jobs, by the way, paid the best. So, haha. And then eventually I wandered into stand up comedy. And that was not with the intention of making a living at it. There's a picture of that'll pop up. So that's me there,
Oh yeah.
right? And you can flip to another picture if you want, is me actually playing as a person. So I did it both ways. That's an earlier picture, very slightly earlier picture when I'm like, hey, let's play like a person. And then I'm like, that doesn't pay as much as the chicken. So then I did the chicken. So then I got into stand up comedy. And originally, that was just a way to entertain myself on a Tuesday night, at a bar. And started doing that, having fun. Figured after a few months, oh, this could maybe turn into something. And it turns out, you want to talk about innovators. My father, who got his degree in law and was a lawyer, corporate lawyer for 15 years, when he was in his late 30s, started doing stand up comedy. And when he was in his early 40s, quit being a lawyer to become a stand up comedian, professional full time stand up comedian, which is what he did for the next 26 years and running. So he just turned 70 and he is still performing.
Love it.
And so he kind of gave me a path. I'm like, oh, this can actually be a job, And so I submitted my tapes, actual VHS tapes or maybe they were mini DVs. I don't remember, but they were not what we have today.
Right.
And I mailed those out, submitted them, started getting paid to do stand up comedy, but not enough to make a living. And that is the beginning of what ends up turning into my keynote speaking career. So I'll stop there because I've talked for a long time if you have any questions, but
So
then I'll keep the story going in a second.
yeah. So all right. So had your dad left being a lawyer and become a stand-up comedian before you became a chicken drummer?
Yes,
Wow. So he
yes.
was like your
How old? I would have
inspiration.
been 18. I would have been 18 years old. My parents got divorced when I was 6,
Mm-hmm.
and I never really kind of clicked in my head what my dad did. It was like, oh, that's a thing my dad does. It
Mm-hmm.
didn't click to me that that's like a job a person could choose, which is idiotic. I mean, I
Yeah. Right.
should have made that connection much earlier, but I didn't.
Yep.
But 3 months into deciding, that I was liking open mics and maybe wanted to see where I could take it, that's when I called my dad. I'm like, hey, I'm doing this. You do this. Let's talk. And he probably saved me 3-4 years worth of time on the front end, opening a couple doors that maybe I would have opened on my own,
Yep.
but he had already done it. So he actually went back to some of the old clubs, the old Midwestern clubs that he had worked when he was younger, and he headlined those clubs and let me feature for him.
I
So
love
I
it.
got to open I got to open for my dad. Like the first 5, 6 times I got paid, that was super cool.
Wow. I mean, talk about an unconventional journey. I mean, yeah, I don't think you had any choice but to think differently. I mean, good God.
Well, no, it's just I don't know. You just never really I never stop thinking. I'm like I don't and I think if you're going to be successful at any business, it never hurts to be mildly paranoid. Mildly uncertain that what you're doing right now is actually going to stick. And so, well, okay, if this thing that I'm doing right now doesn't work out, what else could I do just in case?
Hmm.
And having a mid-20s where I was scrambling to find enough work to pay my mortgage and buy beer and pizza definitely kind of built into my head the idea that nothing is stable, nothing is certain. So keep thinking, and doesn't mean you're always going to come up with a new thing every week, but as long as you keep thinking and put enough thought into it, something is bound to come up. Some new idea is bound to occur to you, and some of those are going to go nowhere, but some of those are going to take you in really important and valuable directions.
So you know, that's really the part that interests me. I mean, is you're going down the road, you're a stand-up comedian. What in God's name makes you think that you can turn that into something that's business related? I mean, there's a lot of truth in all comedy, right? I mean,
Well,
clearly.
that's fair, but no, I mean, I had a lot of people at the time saying, "What are you doing? You haven't worked in corporate America, so what do you think you have to share with people?" And what ended up happening for me, so in stand-up comedy, if you are working the way I was, which is an unknown comedian working in unknown, comedy clubs, mostly throughout the Midwest, it's basically impossible to make a living.
Hmm.
They just don't pay you enough.
Hmm.
So what you want to do, and what everybody eventually decides to do, is you look for the venues that will pay you enough that you can actually make a living at it. And
Hmm.
that would be any other place that does comedy that isn't a comedy club. So
Yep.
that would be church fundraisers, county fairs, cruise ships, college campuses, corporate events. I'm sure I missed a few, but you get the idea.
Yep.
So I spent some time trying to get work as a college comedian, and I got a college agent, and I started running to festivals where you can work on college campuses. And then I started going, I was looking for a cruise ship agent, which I never put together. And then I went to a corporate event and or a corporate showcase. And this is a place where like meeting planners are looking for speakers for their corporate events,
Hmm.
and entertainers as well, but predominantly speakers. And I'd never been to a conference, and I'd never seen a keynote presentation. And I watched 10 people deliver a 10-minute version of their keynote presentation. And there were two of them in particular that were motivational speakers. Like, so they didn't really have any kind of like educational message. They were really just trying to, hoorah you and make you
Hmm.
feel better about
Yep.
yourself. And they were terrible, just awful at doing it. And it wasn't my opinion so much. I mean, the audience, they were not, it was 10 minutes and they've lost their audience in that 10 minutes, right? And they're supposed to talk for 45 or 60 or 90 or 4 hours, who knows how long.
Hmm.
And I told myself, well, there's got to be a way to make fun of this.
Yep.
So that's where this question comes from. So that happened in Des Moines, Iowa. I was living in Nashville. I had a 12-hour drive back home. I asked the question that's on the screen there: could I combine the entertainment of a comedy show with the education of a corporate keynote? And I came up with the title "Uncrapify Your Life," and that originally was a fake motivational speech. So I was making fun of motivational speakers. I told people how to criticize others more effectively and how to blame them for your failures. So that was the message. And I had this, like, I had the structure, I had acronyms, I had all the things that you're used to in a
Yeah.
motivational presentation. And I started getting work doing holiday parties and awards banquets, and those paid enough money that I didn't need another job.
Hey.
And so that was really cool.
Yeah.
And so I started doing, and the whole time I'm doing this, I'm thinking, this is so I started it in October of 2006. And so that's right in the lead up to the holiday season. And I thought, oh, okay, well, as soon as the holiday season's over, I'm done. Like, I'll have to wait till next year. I'll have to go back to whatever, student teaching or substitute teaching or freelance writing or something. And then February comes around and I got enough work to not need another job. And I'm like, okay, fine. It's going to another 2 months and it's out. And I lived that way for like 3 years. Every 2 months, that's how much I have 2 months worth of work, and then it's going to fizzle out. And it just kind of never did. And in that process, people started saying, well, this is really entertaining, but we need someone who has a message. Can you talk about anything useful? And I'm like, sure. What are you interested in? So at that point, I started researching what keynote speakers talk about. So leadership or change management or generational issues or innovation, et cetera, and started figuring out, all right, well, how can I talk about something intelligent? I mean, I was a English major. I like writing. I was an educator, so I like teaching. So how can I talk about something educational and incorporate enough entertainment in here that I'm not, compromising? It's not going to be a lecture. It's going to be fun, but you're going to get a message. And that was the beginning of what I am now. So the original fake motivational speech, that's gone, and in its place are these various presentations that I do on various different business topics, all designed to be educational, all designed to be entertaining. And that's what I've done for the last what's that now, 16 years, and it's worked out really well. But I didn't plan it. I didn't see it coming when I was 25 and lost.
Well, I still remember the phrase "uncrapify your life" from your presentation back in October. It's just,
Good title.
it's a, how could you not? I love that. I mean, and you got to be able to get people's attention, right? It's otherwise it's snooze fest, which you learned when you went out and you did this. But so we were talked in the prep. You were talking about, you gave this kind of phony advice to people, these videos you were creating. I mean, how long did you do that? How many of those things did you do? And God, can I
Oh,
find them on YouTube?
yeah. So there's two things, right? So as I just mentioned, I transitioned this kind of street performance to stand-up comedy to corporate entertainment to keynote speaking, and it's an evolution. And I think it's really important to point that out to people. It's not an overnight type thing.
Mm-hmm.
And when you see somebody who has an unconventional path, and you only find out about them when they are already successful and established, it's really easy to think that they've always been that way.
Right.
But they haven't. It's a years long process of evolving yourself into that position.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm doing that from 2006. Starting in about 2010, 2011, we started putting out videos, on YouTube. And no, I take it back. Our plan was to put them out on YouTube. We were going to create some fake, bad advice, funny business videos that were designed as entertainment, that were touching on a business topic. And a lot of what I was doing at that time was encouraging people to follow bad advice.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea was, if I do it right, it's obvious that I'm being satirical. It's obvious that my advice is wrong. So you just by implication do the opposite of that, and then that's how you get your message. That's how you get your education. But it was implied that is how the education is going to happen. So that's how I originally planned these, and we started filming them. And our original idea was to put them out on YouTube, because at the time, what everybody was doing, and it's what a lot of people do now, is they put out this content for free, and then they hope that it generates interest, and then they hope they can monetize that in some other way.
Mm-hmm.
And what we ended up deciding, me and my brother, we've worked together forever, and we said, well, I don't know, let's try to sell these. Let's see if anybody would buy them.
Mm-hmm.
And so we did, and we managed to make a very, very small number of sales at the very beginning. But it was enough for us to decide not to release them for free. And that ended up being one of the biggest and most important moments, I guess, in my career, because then we kept developing them. And then we started to create videos where the messaging wasn't only implied. We started to, let's make sure the education is obvious, because people are going to want their education to be straightforward and direct, but let's make sure it's still entertaining. Let's not lose that. So the composition of these training videos definitely evolved from the beginning, and the way they look today is very, very different from the way they looked 12 years ago. And because of that, because they have the format of a more traditional type of education, they have become more popular with people who like online education. So flash forward to today, and that part of our business is actually it's probably larger now than the keynote speaking part of my business, which is what got this whole thing started. And I credit that again to, well, everybody else is doing this straightforward, so let's do it backwards. And I credit it to us deciding to try to sell something when everyone else was deciding to give it away for free. And of course, like with any success, there's a healthy amount of luck and timing involved in there as well. And I don't want to discount that at all. because that's true for everybody, regardless of their level of success, especially in the pandemic. I've said to everybody since the pandemic, if the pandemic treated you well, like professionally,
Hmm.
you don't deserve all the credit. And if it treated you poorly, you absolutely do not deserve all the blame.
Yes, for sure. For sure. Yeah. I mean, and it's not just luck, right? Luck's when hard work meets opportunity or whatever the heck it is, you know,
Well, yeah,
you got
there's
to
some of
put in
that,
the
but
time, man.
there's some serendipity in there as well. So, but anyway, yeah, that's kind of how it worked. And so now we have two pieces of our business. Both of them are growing well, and they all started from me failing to get another teaching job,
Oh,
basically.
so you work with your brother. I mean,
Yeah.
is he a funny guy?
He is a funny guy, but he will never, ever, 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 ever see him in front of anybody. He does not want to be a public facing person. He actually does appear in some of our videos, but he can, because that's just a camera and he can be in front of a camera, but he does not want to stand in front of an audience of people. And it works out nicely that he and I have very complementary skills. So I do the writing and the creative side of things. I do
Hmm.
the performing and the presenting side of
Hmm.
things. He handles web design,
Hmm.
video editing, the relationships with our partners who buy our our online training products, and very very little of what we're good at overlaps, which is nice
Hmm.
because collectively we kind of cover everything that needs to be covered, and then we contract out a lot of other services as well. I tend to be more impulsive, a little bit more of a risk taker. He tends to be more conservative and wants
Hmm.
to think things through more thoroughly. So he pulls me back when I'm getting too excited and haven't thought about things, and I push him forward when he's taking too long to move forward on something. And that's not, obviously it's not perfect rule that way, but my point is that we're very very well balanced as a team.
Yeah, boy, I mean, it can go good. It can go really, really well. I would
Yeah.
love to see the behind the scenes when you making those videos with your brother. I'll bet you guys have a blast. So,
Yeah, we those are some of my favorite times. It's a nice community, and you know how you've seen bloopers for a list Hollywood budgets, which
sure.
our budget is slightly smaller than that, but it functions the same. People mess up, you make fun of them, everybody laughs. It's a
Yeah,
good
I've
time.
already messed up today, so there you
That's all right.
go. Cool, cool. So, all right. So, all of that has led you to this amazing success, this crazy journey from high school teacher to chicken drummer to in-person drummer to stand-up comedian to trying to figure out how to make a living at it, keynote speaker, corporate trainer, working with your brother, seven-figure business. But nowadays, you what is your passion today? I mean, obviously you still want to do this great business, but you've gotten to the point where you get to make choices, right? So where is that
Yes.
taking you today?
Well, right now, the thing that I'm the most interested in, I'm obviously keeping this business going, still trying to grow this business, but I'm also really interested in trying to help with the affordable housing shortage.
Hmm.
And so I'm in the process. I've spent the last few months, I'm at the very beginning stages of this, of attempting to create a business that will address affordable housing and create more affordable housing without building anything new. So I'll share the idea here because I want everybody to know it. Because if somebody else can take this idea and run with it above me or in conjunction with me or somewhere else that I don't live, I would love that. So
Great.
the idea is to purchase multifamily properties. So this would be duplexes, fourplexes, apartment homes, mobile home parks, stuff like that. To purchase things that are currently only available for rent. So
Hmm.
like just imagine an apartment building, and then condominiumize it. That is the legal term for creating each of these units in the building as a discrete
Hmm.
purchasable unit, the way it is in a condo.
Hmm.
That's why it's called condominiumization. So buy the building, condominiumize it, and then sell each individual unit, at cost plus a little bit of a business profit to an end user. And there's a lot of legal work that needs to happen to make sure that people don't just flip these properties
Right.
and that they go to the right individuals.
Hmm.
But I've looked at the numbers, and doing this will create affordable housing for people making a median income without new construction and without subsidies. And that's a big deal. You don't need to sink, taxpayer dollars, for example, into a project to subsidize the cost and drive the prices down.
Hmm.
You can instead, you can just put money into it. You can buy a building, you can recover your costs, give people an affordable product, get your money back, and then do it again. And so whatever monies are in this system have the opportunity to kind of compound and continuously create a benefit.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I'm working on right now. As far as I can tell, it's not an approach anybody else has taken to the affordable housing situation. Most of it involves new construction, which is great, but there are some challenges with that, and I'm not trying to compete with that approach.
Right.
I'm trying to complement it with a different approach.
Mm-hmm.
But if you could theoretically take every rentable unit in America, every apartment building, whatever else, and magically make it purchasable to people, you would take a huge chunk out of the affordable housing shortage and crisis we have right now. So that's the goal. Well, and I'm in the very, very beginning stages. I anticipate it's going to take, it's actually kind of helpful to have the business experience that I do right now, because my path here today with speaking and entertainment and training, it took a while, to get here. So I anticipate this next one is going to take a while. But I also know that if I stick with it and keep meeting people, keep talking about it, keep asking questions, keep thinking it through, I'll find a way forward. So.
I love it. Yeah. And, and you brought up the pandemic before, but there's so many crazy things going on in real estate right now because of changes in people's work habits and their work location and hybrid and remote. I mean, myself are a remote worker. So, it's affecting the real estate business. It's affecting rentals. It's affecting all these things. So people can't fill these. So it could be the perfect time. Who knows, for such a thing to happen. I mean, sounds to me like your entire career, your entire life has been about, taking lemons and turn them into lemonade, or taking chickens and turn them into chicken juice. I don't know, one of the two. But I mean, it's, take that adversity and turn it into opportunity. And I mean, it's a lesson for all of us, and you use the magic word, differentiate, and keep, shooting for the stars, man. I just love your story.
Well, I appreciate it. And I do want anybody who's listening, a lot of us, and the pandemic was a great example of that. A lot of us had been on a path that we hadn't necessarily chosen, or if we chose it, we forgot we chose it and we were just on it. Right. Yeah. And then the pandemic happens and everybody on the planet had to answer the question, what the hell do I do right now? And for the first time in a lot of people's lives, they actually had the mental, bandwidth to question whether they were where they wanted to be. And it takes a long time sometimes to figure out how to make those changes, what those changes should be, where you really want to go. And, you don't need a pandemic for that to happen. I mean, that's what you call a midlife crisis, right? Or that's what we call, your 20s, if you've got somebody who's not really sure where they want to go. And I just want to kind of encourage anybody who's listening to understand that that's an okay thing to be. It's okay to be lost. It's okay to not exactly know how to get where you're trying to go. As long as you keep staring at the question and thinking about it and trying different stuff out, eventually something's going to take. And it might not be what you expect it to be, and it might not work out exactly the way that you think it will, but something will carry you in the direction that you're, aiming to go. And you might, like I said, you might not hit exactly there, but it's going to take you in the right path. I didn't plan to be where I am today. I'm happy with where I am. I just didn't see it coming, and that's okay. That's okay. So I want other people to feel the same thing. And if anything about my weird and wandering path and the success that came from it is helpful to others who are experiencing the same thing, then that's great.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better. I mean, and for all the people out there that are, might be one of those in that situation, say, "What, I've got to map out my life and I've got to accomplish this, this, and this by the time I'm 30." There ain't no rule set.
Yeah,
you write the rules to your life, and as long as you follow Jeff's advice and maybe his example and get your own animal suit.
There's a lot more options these days. There were only 2 back in my day because the internet was like 3 years old. But now you could probably get anything you wanted to. Get like a
probably could.
Drum real slow.
Slow drum roll and one-handed clap. I love when you young guys look at say how old you are in front of my gray beard. I love it. Do you have any? How can people get in touch with you? I mean, how can they help you out?
Well, they help me out by enjoying their lives and doing something useful with them. JeffHavens.com, so JEFFHAVENS.com is where you can see the keynote presentations I do, the training that we do. And then WeAreHavensHomes.com will explain the affordable housing. So it's WEARE Havens, my last name, homes.com. That will explain what I'm trying to do with this business. There's a very extensive FAQ page because there's a lot of questions. It's kind of a new approach.
Hmm.
And if anybody listening, that's the thing I'm really the most interested in personally right now. I think it's the thing that our country needs the most right now. I like being able to go around and talk to people and entertain them and make them laugh. But if I could go around and help people afford their own homes and build equity and generational wealth, that would be a lot better. So if anybody out there, has any ideas or advice or questions or can poke holes in my idea and help me figure out how to make it stronger or find funding for it, any of those things, that would be great. So
Fantastic. Well, I'm going to make sure that all that information is in the show notes for everyone to see with this
thank you.
podcast and more. That way they make it nice and easy and they don't have to rewind. Go ahead. Just rewind and listen to the way he spelled it 2 or 3 times. It'll all be fine. All right.
Right.
Jeff, I cannot thank you enough. Thanks for agreeing to my crazy idea when we met at that conference and coming on here and talking to me. And I just wish you and your family the merriest of Christmases, happy Hanukkahs, happy holidays, and every other thing, whatever your choice is, go enjoy it the rest of your life,
Well,
brother.
thank you very much, Chuck. I appreciate you having me on, and you have a terrible Christmas. I hope it's awful.
It's gonna be. When I'm done Christmas, I'm gonna have to uncrapify it.
Sounds good.
Thanks, brother.
Thank you.